Good morning, gentlemen. Many people ask me as to what's happening in the South China Sea. Will there be a war between America and China? Well, we all know there's a war on in Ukraine, certainly, but many people want to know what's going to happen in the South China Sea. Will America fight China on behalf of Formosa and Japan? Well, gentlemen, there's no simple answer to this question. I can't say it in one line, but I'm going to go into a little bit of history. And before that, I'd like to quote a small incident from William Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar. If you remember, in that play, Brutus murders Caesar, and Mark Antony, in a speech at the funeral of Julius Caesar, says, Brutus did so and so things, but he's an honorable man. Now, that's the point which I want to make. And I will say the same thing about Joe Biden. He's like Brutus. He's done a lot of crimes as far as the world is concerned, but then he's an honorable man. And the American presidents have all been honorable men. And to see whether America is going to fight China or no, we have to look back into history. America always had a soft corner for China, always. They wanted to be friends with China, come what may. And even during the Second World War, they sided with China against Japan. They put a trade embargo against Japan when the Japanese invaded China and occupied Manchuria. That's a fact of history. So the question is, what happens now? Over the period of time, the critique of the Americans that General Chiang Kai-shek was defeated, and he had to escape from China. Now, I won't go into the details of the Civil War. We well know what happened. Mao Zedong won. It was a civil war which lasted 4 years, and then he became the dictator of the mainland. And this man, Chiang Kai-shek, who actually was an American critique, he went and hid in the island of Formosa. But the Americans didn't forsake him immediately. They said there's only one China, and that one China is the Nationalist China, which is led by Chiang Kai-shek. But the American industry was greatly perturbed. Perturbed in the sense they were missing a very lucrative market in China. And they were very keen to sell their goods to China and make a foray there and earn money for themselves, the corporations. So how to go there? They had to abandon Mr. Chiang Kai-shek. He was thrown into the South China Sea. He was told, don't worry, we'll look after you. But at the same time, Richard Nixon made a visit to Beijing. There he paid his obeisance to the Emperor of China, Mao Zedong. And once he did that, things were normalized. Now, he made one very significant statement there, a concession to the Chinese. What did he say? He said, I accept one China policy, and mainland China is the main China. Now, once you have committed that, the entire American actions after that are hollow. All the American presidents like Brutus were honorable men, yes, but they sold Taiwan down the line at that time in 1971. And that has been like an albatross around their neck, and it's been there since the last 50 years. Now the situation is that America has committed so much of capital in China, billions and billions of dollars, and it's facilitated the rise of China. I tell you frankly, I met an American friend of mine, and he told me America never expected that China will come so far forward. They gave them aid thinking they'll wean them away from Russia, they'll be our ally. That was the reason. But they never expected China to do reverse engineering and use the fertile Chinese brain and catch up with America, which they have done. Chinese economy is now 18 trillion, American 23 trillion. Chinese trade with China $650 billion, and $450 billion is the trade deficit. That means China is the one which gains immensely with this trade with America. And not only that, the top American corporations from Apple downwards are all in China. Now, this is really what happens. when you are honorable men, but then you looking for something else. And none of the American top executives are clean. There have been allegations against Biden Hunter. There's a commission against him. I'm not saying it's there in the American press. And then there were allegations against Ivanka Trump also. She got so many patents from China. And Trump, when he took over president, the first thing he did was to talk to Beijing President Xi. He called him over to his resort in Florida. I mean, you can just imagine. I mean, he was also starting off on the wrong foot. Now, leave that aside. The man now in charge is Biden. And what is America going to do now? America has got high stakes in China. And if you look at history, as I've already told you, the Americans could have nipped China in the bud at any time. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do it. Why? Because they wanted China as a proxy, as an ally against Russia. Because Russia is the enemy they hate. I don't know why, but they hate Russia, the Americans. And they'll pick up any page from history here and there and try to put damn Russia. But with China, they're different. They're scared of the Chinese population, they're scared of the Chinese army, and I can tell you the general staff, American general staff, doesn't want to fight China. There's a book written by Field Marshal Montgomery when he visited China, and in that book he has written, the Western powers must never think of fighting China, never. Because to win against China is next to impossible. That's the famous Field Marshal talking, and I think I'll agree with him. Now China has come up. The Chinese military is very strong. They've gone into cyber warfare. They've gone to space. They have spacemen. They're making their own aircraft. They have their own fifth generation aircraft flyer. But it's not very good, of course. But it is there. It is the Chinese made. It is the Chengdu. So now we are coming down further, that China is not a country that you can travel with. And Americans missed the bus. Way back in 1962, when Johnson was the president and China was going to explode their first nuclear bombs, Johnson was advised to bomb the Chinese sites in Xinjiang. But he developed cold feet, and the American industry didn't want him to bomb these Chinese sites, and he didn't do it. It's very difficult to reconcile to the fact that when North Korea is expanding some nuclear arsenal and exploding some rockets, the American reaction is so severe. They say, we'll bomb Korea, we'll do this, trade embargo. But when China was doing, they did nothing. That is something which we must all bear in mind. They facilitated the rise of China. And now that China has become like the Frankenstein which has come, the Americans are worried. They are worried because for the simple reason they don't want to fight China. Just like India doesn't want to fight China. I just made a video some time back and made it very clear that the Indian leadership doesn't want to fight China. They know we don't have the gumption. We don't want to fight China, that's all. Similarly, the American military, despite all talk and bravado, doesn't want to fight China. So I do not visualize an America-China war at any stage. And if the chips are down, there is a good chance that Joe Biden, he's a very honorable man like Brutus, but he will just throw in the towel, hand over Taiwan to the Chinese. It may look preposterous now, and some of my American friends may be feeling, well, what the group is talking is all B, but it's not all B. What I'm saying is a fact. I know a lot of American people, and I'm pretty sure in my assessment that America never wanted to stop China. If you remember the statement by President Duterte, the ex-president of the Philippines, and what did he say? He said if America was serious to stopping China in the South China Sea, why didn't they send 5 aircraft carriers there 20 years back? Police the entire area and threw the Chinese out. And now that South China Sea has become like a Chinese island. There are man-made Chinese islands there, and they have set up air bases, airfields. What are you going to do about it? You expect the Philippines or Vietnam to go and throw the Chinese out? No way. And the Americans only doing some navigation exercises, sending some cruiser here and there, it has got no meaning. Because the horses have bolted. China is there. Now let's keep one thing in mind, that China at the moment doesn't have the amphibious capability to mount an invasion against Taiwan. They don't have that capability. But what if they get that capability in the next 3 years, 5 years? Will they keep quiet? Taiwan will find it very difficult to fight China on its own. It will need the help of America and Japan. Now, Japan as it is, is an aging nation. I mean, it's no longer what it was. The Japanese, the samurai and all that is all past history. The Japanese now perhaps don't know what to do. Their economy was way ahead of China. Their now gross product is below China, much below China. And the Japanese are not able to manufacture all the earlier high-tech goods which they were manufacturing, compared to what China is doing. And China supplies the same goods cheaper than what Japan does. So, gentlemen, we must bear in mind the global power politics which are on. We must remember that a leader is one who is dispassionate. We don't want an honorable man. Yes, good. Honorable is good, like Brutus. But the deeds which Brutus did are what matter. He killed Caesar. And most of the American presidents, even Joe Biden, are concentrating on fighting Russia. When Russia is a non-entity. I don't think Russia is a world power or anything like that. It's a regional power, and you're just fighting with them for what for? I couldn't understand it. At the same time, you throw in the trouble to China. You want to fight China. If you wanted to fight China, you would have stopped trade with them, put a trade embargo. Are you going to do that? The Americans don't have the gumption to do it. Half the American economy is controlled by China. And tomorrow the Chinese decide to encash their economy, what the Americans are going to do? So, gentlemen, we must understand the reality, and it's about time Mr. Modi and his cabinet understood it also. They seem to be playing a double game as far as Russia is concerned, and it's about time they realize that those who run with the hound and run with the rabbit and hunt with the hound, they don't last long. Gentlemen, this is my assessment. The Americans have been wanting to be friends with the mainland China for the last 100 years. There was a brief period when they supported Chiang Kai-shek, but they dumped him into the ocean, and now they are facilitated the rise of China. And once China has risen, they are having thoughts, look what we have created. And I think many Americans realize that they have created Frankenstein, a monster, as far as America is concerned, and China is flexing its muscles. So let's see, gentlemen, what happens. I don't think America is going to have the guts to sit and fight a war with China, because if it's a conventional war, America got no chance. I'll give you an idea. When I was doing the staff college, we learned America has got 16 active divisions, the Indian Army has got 29. So, you expect the Americans to go and fight China? For Taiwan? No way. They will keep on trying to brandish some threats here and there, as they did in South China Sea. They've done nothing. They haven't thrown out the Chinese islands from the South China Sea. They're there. And the Chinese always protest when an American warship sails through, and the other countries like Philippines and Vietnam and all, they've been presented with a fait accompli. Even the International Court of Justice has given decision, the Chinese have just thrown it into the Pacific Ocean, that is judgment of the International Court. And what did the Americans do about it? Nothing. They can't do anything. Well, gentlemen, the world is in a very exciting state, and nothing is dynamic. It's moving. And I think the clock is turning in the favor of the East now. And the East is represented by China. Many don't like it. Maybe I also don't like it, because China is an autocratic state, a totalitarian state. There are no personal freedoms there, but that's part of the game. That's the sacrifice which you have to make for greatness. Otherwise, you are like India, with 40% below the poverty line, hunger, food stalking the nation. You want that, or you want progress and power? So you're going to decide yourself. And the Americans, I think, have already decided they're going to not oppose China in a military conflict. They'll do it otherwise, diplomatically, this thing, that thing, but no military conflict. I close now, gentlemen. Do subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, like my channel. I close now and wish you all the best. Jai Hind. God bless India.